Hello. So for my place narrative, I wanted to use a site that was close to home that I'm familiar with, and that is Schiller Woods in Illinois. Near Rosemont, Schiller Woods is home to a diverse array of natural habitats, including wooded areas, remnant prairies, meadows, and wetlands. With wide open spaces and a pond, visitors can enjoy easy access to outdoor activities such as picnicking and fishing. This 284-acre land in Schiller Park has many conservation and cultural aspects in such a small area. The Lake and Cook County Forest Preserve districts have protected long stretches of the Des Plaines River by developing a greenway and path in Schiller Woods. Through my research, there does not seem to be any information about when Schiller Woods was established, but the Forest Preserve District of Cook County was established in 1914, which oversees Cook County's forest preserves, including Schiller Woods. Now, it should be said that the Forest Preserve District of Cook County is a governmental commission in Cook County. Now, as you can see, there's much more to this area than just woods. There are multiple resources that Schiller Woods provides. One of the things that's very popular at Schiller Woods is its trails, specifically the Des Plaines River Trail System. This system is a public entity and is one of Chicagoland's most heavily used and historically important trails. The trail largely follows the Des Plaines River as it goes through more than a dozen communities in Cook County. While the trail is a great community asset along its entire length, current issues facing the Des Plaines River Trail are the flooding and erosion resulting from the adjacent Des Plaines River, especially during the warmer months. Currently, trail users must also cross many four-lane or wider streets, which could be dangerous. As a result of these conditions, a number of pedestrian and bicycle crashes have occurred near the trail. So to show how bad these trails can get, I have a picture on the top left that shows how often certain trails do get flooded throughout the year. And specifically for segment 4, so Lawrence Avenue to Irving Park Road, that is a trail that is in Schiller Woods. And as you can see, almost half of the length of the trail is at one point flooded by the Des Plaines River. And that's just to demonstrate how often this does happen in Schiller Woods. And on the bottom left, it just demonstrates how dangerous trails can be because they do cross dangerous streets at certain points. And in response to this problem, in 2019, the Trail Advisory Group and the Forest Preserve of Cook County did create a three-phase plan. And as you can see, the first phase was a preliminary engineering and environmental studies, which has been completed. And then phase 2 was a contract plan preparation, which is still in the process. And then in phase 3, there is supposed to be construction. As of now, I have not seen any construction on a trail for Schiller Woods because it is such a big trail. Now the plan is to rebuild, reroute, and revitalize portions of the trail in the Schiller Woods area. And as you can see from the pictures, they are trying to get rid of trails that are near the river so to reduce flooding. They're also trying to improve existing trails, and they're also trying to incorporate overpasses so to promote crosswalk safety. Now, I mentioned the trail project effort because it is an example of people's values. John O'Neill's book, Environmental Values, explains the different dimensions of living in and with the world. He describes recreational value specifically. In chapter 1, he describes that recreational value, quote, catches the way in which forests, beaches, mountains, and rivers are places in which social and individual recreational activities take place, end quote. We not only value our activities with nature, like walking or hiking, but we also value its existence or intrinsic value. Again, in chapter 1, O'Neill says, quote, it is not about the conservation of natural resources or about cultural significance as such, but about the natural world as a direct object of value, often, quote, quite independent of any use it might have for individuals, end quote. We want to be involved in nature, but we also want to just appreciate nature as well. People are social beings that want to use places like Schiller Woods to do activities, in this case on the Des Plaines Trail. If we did not have this recreational or intrinsic value, the advisory group would not want to make these upgrades or changes. There would not be any effort in making the trail more accessible or safe. People unknowingly understand these values from O'Neill, and the Des Plaines River Trail project is an example of these dimensions. In addition to the trail system, Schiller Woods also has a pond and, of course, the Des Plaines River. Now, for the pond, it is 6 acres and has a maximum depth of 6.3 feet. Surprisingly, though, you can fish in this small pond. You can get a variety of fish like bluegill and largemouth bass. There is also the Des Plaines River that runs along the Schiller Woods. This river flows southward for 133 miles through southern Wisconsin and northern Illinois. Here you can also fish for bluegill or largemouth bass, in addition to many others. Now, these bodies of water are public places, which have their own provisional rules. Now, the picture on the left is Schiller Pond, which is relatively small, and on the right is a picture of the Des Plaines River. Now, these are graphs of the fish population in the pond. These are samples, so it is not the total population in the pond, but it does show the diversity of the fish. And as you can see, most of it is bass and bluegill, but there is also carp, catfish, and also hybrids as well. As said earlier, there are rules for what to use in bodies of water, including the Des Plaines River and the pond. There are restrictions on certain fishing tools, like there's no bow or arrow fishing, and each fisherman is limited to 2 lines with no more than 2 hooks per line, in addition to also requiring you to have a fishing license. And this could be said for watercrafts as well. You cannot have any fuel-powered watercrafts, and there is no flotation device as well. Now, these rules are created by the Board of Forest Preserve Commissioners and enforced by Forest Preserve officers. And because Schiller Woods is in Cook County, there is a huge system in place for enforcing and creating rules. And what I learned most about this semester is that rules are necessary to create a safe and efficient common pool resource, just like Schiller Pond. And I think Ostrom's points this out in her design principles for effective common pool resource, including Principle 1 and Principle 2, which are relevant, which are clearly defined boundaries and the congruence between appropriation and provisional rules. I think Schiller is not as extensive as other places that we learned about, but it is interesting to see how a public resource functions in an urban area. And not only the pond and Des Plaines River, but every body of water in Cook County has these rules, so to create an effective system. However, due to the lack of locals being involved in the making of these rules, there is and could be a lack of respect for these rules. Now, due to the finite amount of fish that are in the Schiller Pond due to fishing, the Illinois Department of Natural Resources Division of Fisheries do restock the pond a couple of times a year. The Illinois hatchery system is composed of 3 facilities that have produced millions of fish in the past. And as taken from the Illinois hatchery website, stocking can be helpful for starting new populations in new waters, increasing diversity in the water, and also restoring populations that have been reduced or eliminated. Now, these benefits of fish stocking does show again the end dimension from O'Neill in environmental values, because we tend to understand our value in sustaining life. Here, the hatchery stocks ponds and rivers to not have these depleted fish populations. We do this because we want to be sustainable in the environment and to promote community activity. And I think a good quote comes from Tim Jackson's Prosperity Without Growth in Chapter 1, saying, quote, "Prosperity consists in our ability to flourish as human beings within the limits of a finite planet," end quote. We replenish fish populations because it makes us not only feel good about ourselves, but also keeps us within the limits of our planet. And I think Schiller Woods' involvement in restocking fish is just an example of that philosophy. There is also a culture aspect to Schiller Woods, and in this case it is the Serpent Twin Mound, which is a contemporary earthwork by indigenous artist and architect Santiago X. And Native Americans have long used mounds as burial sites or for ceremonies or wayfinding. This monument reflects the ancestral tradition of mound building. It serves to educate the public about the rich cultural history of indigenous placemaking in Illinois. The serpent surrounds the area as it weaves in and out of the earth, reminding us of our reciprocal human connection to the river and to the land. It also creates an indigenous space within a space where American cities and preserves were built over the top of an existing culture. In addition to the mound, they also created a land acknowledgement statement that you can see here. And I think it is important to talk about the environment, but it's also important to talk about people's cultures involving the environment too. In this case, officials decided to acknowledge the Native American culture and its history. Much of the land was occupied by Native Americans long before Cook County was even established. And I think Tim Jackson again makes a good point in his book by saying, quote, "Culture shapes and constrains our lives. When things are working well, social structures are properly aligned with collective values and provide a cultural framework, allowing us to live meaningful lives," end quote. I think Schiller did the right thing in creating a monument to respect a people's culture. This allows people to flourish mentally and spiritually, which then allows for prosperity. Schiller understood this by creating this monument. In conclusion, we talked about the trail system, the pond, and the serpent mound. Now, as I try to put this point across throughout the presentation, the dimensions given by O'Neill in environmental values gives us the narrative that we cannot ignore. Schiller Woods is a small example of these dimensions. We take water from the wells, we create improved trails so we can value the environment more, then we acknowledge the cultural impact of the land. These dimensions define why Schiller Park is still being improved and monitored, because we still value it. I also believe that Ostrom's design principles gives us a guideline on if a certain common pool resource will flourish, and I think Schiller Woods has some of those principles. Then lastly, I also believe that Schiller Woods is a great example of our goal of prosperity. Schiller Woods would not improve their trails or restock ponds with fish if they did not have their goal on prosperity, which is why I think Schiller Woods is a great example of that idea of prosperity. Now, I hope you like my presentation, and thank you.